this one. Well, we all know about the delicious French cheeses, but did you know that the French cheese board today is made of more than 2,000 different cheeses? I've learned now that this is because the French milk production exists in many diverse regions with very different landscapes, from the mountains and all the way to the coast, and that the variety of breeds, so cows and goats and sheep, they also play a very important role to create this diversity in the French cheeses. And I guess diversity is the key word for the whole French dairy sector, even at industry level, where processing activities involve world-scale groups like Lactalis, Danone, Sodial and Savencia, as well as many smaller and middle-sized operators. But France is known for more than its variety of cheeses. And I'm not thinking about the Eiffel Tower now, at least, but more the quality of its butters. Butter seems to be the secret of success, or maybe not so secret anymore, but the important ingredients of the French gastronomy. And being fond of both cheese and butter, I must admit, I'm looking forward to learn more about the French dairy sector today, but also to take a look outside what's happening in France. So welcome to this IDF technical webinar on the world dairy situation with focus on France. My name is Helle Huseby and I will be your moderator today. With me in this webinar today, I have Jean-Marc Chomet, Benoit Rouet, and Jennifer Huet, all working for the French dairy interbranch organization CNIL. And I also have support from Annabelle Cabero from the IDF head office, who will take us through the slides and follow the chat. This webinar is designed to showcase the comprehensive information available in the World Dairy Situation Report from IDF, along with key highlights from the latest edition. And it will also provide you with unique insights of the specific situation in France, which will get you ready for the upcoming IDF World Dairy Summit in Paris in October. But first, some housekeeping. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be available after the webinar. Please mute your microphones and turn off your cameras. You can type your questions in the chat box, and we will have a Q&A session after the talks from our three speakers. And lastly, for those of you that would like to have a better understanding, you can use the option transcript to read the subtitles, which actually is provided in the application. We don't know the future, but we can look at how our sector has performed globally over the last few years. And IDF produced these two flagship reports. Today, we will hear more about at least the one to the left, the IDF World Dairy Situation Report. But the global marketing trends on the right-hand side is also published every 2-3 years, and it's complementary to the IDF World Dairy Situation. And this other report is published, the World Dairy Situation is published annually, early fall, at the World Dairy Summit, and the last version is from 2023. This publication focuses on the understanding the changes in the dairy consumption in the world. And you can access the publication on our website, and the link is provided in the chat. We have a great lineup of speakers today. Jean-Marc is an agricultural economist, currently working as the economy director of the French Dairy Interbranch Organization, CNIL. I have learned that he previously spent 12 years at the French Livestock Institute as a project manager, focusing on international economic studies and market analysis there. Prior to this, he worked at the French Embassy in China, before conducting foresight research at the French National Institute for Agricultural Research, INRA. Jean-Marc will provide us with an overview of the IDF World Dairy Situation Report. Can you share your slides, Jean-Marc?
Yes, hello everybody. I'm going to share my slides. Just 1 minute. Yes. Okay. Can you see my slides?
We can see your slides.
Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you live. Yes, thank you, Heller. So, as you said, I'm going to provide a few insights of the world dairy situation. The World Dairy Situation Report is an annual IDF publication. And as we will see, it provides understanding on the current macro supply and demand trends affecting the dairy sector, but also analysis on key regions and country comparison using standardized data. It is processed by a Dutch and French dairy organization, namely ZNL and CNIL, and it is based on data information provided by IDF national committees and other national dairy organizations with the support of IDF head office. So the report itself is composed of 3 parts. So the first part, in the first part, you can find the foreword, of course, the summary, the sponsor, and also what we call the World Dairy Situation at a glance, which is, in fact, in 2 pages, some very important charts and data, which provide you with a nutshell, the situation of the dairy sector in a nutshell. The second part of the report is comprises chapters providing information about the different aspects of the global dairy sector, like milk production, milk processing, dairy industry, consumption, trade, prices, and also some short and medium-term outlook, because OECD is writing a chapter about their market outlook, and IDF is presenting trends of the current year with the most available data. So what a chapter in the World Dairy Situation Report look like? Well, it look like this. In each chapter, you will find some text explaining in details what happened in terms of production, processing, consumption, and so on at the global level, but also by regions and for the most important countries. But in this chapter, you will also find some visual representation of data, like charts, maps, to have a better understanding of the trends of the situation. The third part and the last part of the report is made up of annexes. The first annex is a presentation of the dairy sector of the host country of the World Dairy Summit. Last year, it was the USA, and this year, you will find an insight on the dairy situation in France. Annex 2 is the biggest part of the report. It is made of country reports. The dairy situation of more than 50 countries is displayed on 2 pages, showing relevant data and information like the number of cows in the country, the milk production of the country, the number of dairy farms, cow's milk prices, but also charts of milk production, the volume of dairy production for dairy products, export, import, and consumption. And on the second page of the country report, you will find qualitative information written by a local expert, and this qualitative information describes the dairy sector highlights in each country. So, for example, last year you could find information about Poland and knowing that in Poland the raw milk deliveries increased and resulted in an increase of production of almost all dairy products. You will also found that in Brazil, the farm gate milk price level was very high, at its highest in 2022, but that milk supply became difficult due to higher costs of feed, energy, and fertilizers and transportation. And you will also know that in Korea, the total volume of dairy product consumption decreased, but also that the consumption per capita decreased also. So this is the kind of information you could find in each of the 50 country reports with charts for each country. But of course, if you want to have access to all the data, Annex 3 gives you production, consumption, and trade data of the top countries for the past 5 year. So you will find in Annex 3 all the data in volume, also in growth, in CAGR also for most important country. And you have this for production, consumption, export, and import. So just to give you some information you can find, some more qualitative information that you can find in the report. Because as I said, the World Dairy Situation report gives you a global perspective as well as a country approach of the previous year. All the data I'm going to show you today are available in the 2023 report. So there are 2022 data. Of course, the new report will be released in October this year and will be presented at the World Dairy Summit in Paris. And the new report, the 2024 report, will have data for 2023 and the beginning of 2024. But just to give you some examples of what we presented last year at the World Dairy Summit in Chicago, just a glimpse of this. So let's look at the milk production. If you remember in 2020, we saw that COVID-19 had a limited impact on the global milk production, which grew by plus 3% year on year. It was the same in 2021, plus 2.1%. But in 2022, the global milk production only showed a plus 1.1% growth to reach a volume of 936 million tons, which is a new record, by the way. But for the second year in a row, 2021 and 2022, milk production growth was below the 10 years average. So the question was, why, one more time, the milk production growth was below average? And the limited growth of milk production in 2022 reflected the difficult supply situation, especially in key exporting regions, because of the sharp increase in production costs, energy, animal feed, and fertilizers. And also the limited growth we saw in 2021 was also 2022, I'm sorry, was also the consequence of adverse weather in different parts of the world, like Oceania, South America, and some parts of Europe. And if you look into details in the table on the right-hand side, we see that among species, cow's milk production, which accounts for more than 80% of global milk production, only increased by 0.7%, which is below 2010-2022 average. And in fact, 2022, again, a big share of the growth came from buffalo milk. Buffalo milk production increased by more than 3%. And year after year, we can see that the share of buffalo milk increases. It reached 15.2% in 2022 compared to 13% in 2010. And comparatively, cow milk share erodes over time. Besides buffalo milk, the other growth factor of global milk production was also production in the milk-deficient region, Asia, but also other regions. Another thing you could find in the report is milk production, the geographical breakdown of milk production. You can see now that in 2022, I'm sorry, Asia now accounts for 34% of world's cow's milk production compared to 26% in 2010. And for the last 7 years, Asia has been the leading growth region with an annual growth rate of 4.5%. And Asia, in the past few years, is responsible for 65% of the global increase in cow's milk production. When I mean Asia, it's from Japan to Turkey. That's what Asia comprised in our report. And as you can see, that the growth of other regions were lower than in Asia, plus 1.9% in Africa, plus 1.3% in North and Central America, and only 0.6% in the EU, and a stability in South America, and even a decrease in Oceania and non-European countries over the past few years. But of course, only a part of the milk produced globally is delivered to dairy companies to be processed into dairy products. And as you remember, 2022 was a surprisingly dynamic year, despite the COVID-19 crisis, because global milk deliveries, cow's milk deliveries, grew by 2.5%. And in 2021, only grew by 0.5%. And in 2022, we had a marginal decrease, minus 0.1%. It was the first since 2016. Globally, the first half of 2022 witnessed a decline in milk deliveries due to escalating input costs and adverse weather. But the second half of 2022 experienced more favorable conditions, marked by high farm-gate milk prices, leading to an increase in milk deliveries in many countries, especially the USA. So, with the near stability in deliveries in 2022, the production of dairy products showed lower growth, and the output of dairy product differed significantly between product categories. In 2022, dairy processors favored butter and SMP over cheese on WMP. Global cheese production slowed down at 1%, which is below the average annual growth of 22% since 2010. And among the main exporting countries, the US showed an increase of 2%, while the EU recorded a smaller increase and production decreased in New Zealand. In contrast, butter output increased by 1.9%. Production in India, which is the world leading producer, grew by more than 3%. In New Zealand, output surged by 6%. SMP production rebounded in 2022 at plus 1.3%, especially in the EU and New Zealand, while the US showed a decrease. And because we had more butter and more SMP and a limited supply of milk, well, WMP production dropped in 2022 by more than 5%, especially in the EU and in the New Zealand. And finally, for my last slide about the glimpse of what we can find in the report is consumption. In 2020, as well as 2021, consumption trends were greatly affected by the shutdown of some outlets because of COVID measures, leading to a higher demand of packaged goods in retail and a lower one for food service. But in 2022, sanitary restrictions related to COVID-19 were completely eased in most countries except for China. Another factor has been weighing on consumption since the end of 2021, it is inflation. The surge of inflation has led to higher prices for food products, and dairy products were no exceptions. And so consumer habits and patterns have been severely impacted, and in major consumption regions, retail sales volume have declined and consumer has shifted towards more affordable alternatives. In the same time, the world population grew by 65 million people, a little bit less than 1%. So if we analyze this at a consumption per capita, we can see that consumption per capita remains stable at 117.7 kilograms in milk equivalent per capita in 2022. Of course, behind this annual per capita figure, there is a diverse range of situations concerning both the quantity and types of dairy products consumed throughout the world. For example, Asia's average per capita consumption was just below 100 kilograms per capita in 2022. And if we look at the consumption of dairy product per dairy product, we can see that butter accounts for 16%, cheese for 13%, and fresh milk and milk product account for 14%. And we estimate that the other half of global milk production is not processed through industrial channels and rely on informal sector. So this is what I wanted to tell you today about the World Situation report. As I said again, the new report will be released in October, will be presented at the World Dairy Summit in Paris, and you will find all the updated data of the chart I show you and a lot more.
Thank you so much for giving these insights, Jean-Marc. And yes, we are looking forward to the new report, but I guess first we have to submit some data also for you to make the report. I can see that Annabelle has put the links to the reports in the chat to make it easier for all of you to access them. So please feel free to take a look. I think we save the questions for later, Jean-Marc, if there's any. Yes. So I think I will introduce our next speaker. That's Benoit Royer. Benoit has been involved in the dairy sector for 25 years. Since 2009, I think you have been working at Kinel, where you currently is the Economic Outlook Director. Previously, he was in charge of the dairy products for UB France, which is the French Trade Foreign Office, if I'm correct. Benoit holds a master's degree in agriculture from the National Institute of Agriculture in Rennes, and you also have an MBA from the Paris University. Looking forward to listen to you, Benoit.
Thank you very much. So I'm trying to share my presentation. Can you see the screen?
We can.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So as every country hosting a World Dairy Summit, France defines itself as a dairy land, and with certain subjectivity, I would say that France is a very special dairy land because of its diversity. This diversity expresses itself through the key role played by three different species in the milk industry. Well, France is the second player in the EU for cow milk, accounting for 16% of the global volume. But as a Mediterranean country, France is also incredibly involved in small ruminant milk production. France is the fourth country in the EU for sheep milk production, and the first one for goat milk production, accounting for 30% of the global volume. The dynamic of milk production varies widely according to species. Since 2015, cow milk production has been decreasing by 8% in France. This move goes completely against the global trend in the EU, which achieved 6% growth between 2015 and 2023. The dynamic also appears much more favorable for French goat and sheep milk production, which have respectively increased by 12% and 11% since 2015. The location of milk production is not exactly the same according to species. Well, cow milk is produced in almost every French region, with a high concentration in the western part of the country, in regions like Pays de la Loire, Bretagne, and Normandy. Sheep milk production is highly concentrated in Occitanie, which accounts for 3/4 of the national production and includes the famous area where Roquefort cheese is produced. Goat milk production is mostly produced in the western and central parts of the countries, in regions such as Nouvelle-Aquitaine, Pays de la Loire, Occitanie, and Val-de-Loire. Is based on family farms. Among the 46,000 cow dairy farms delivering milk in France, there is none holding 1,000 cows or more. A typical French dairy farm has 110 hectares and 70 cows, producing 500,000 liters of milk per year, with 2 people working on it. One important feature of the French dairy industry is the importance of PDO dairy products, which concern almost every region. There are 51 PDO dairy products, including 46 cheeses, mostly made from raw milk, 3 butters, and 2 creams. Milk manufacturers for PDO dairy products accounts for 12% of global cow milk production, 40% for goat milk, and 36% for sheep milk production. PDO dairy products play a growing role in the dairy industry. That is notably the case for cow milk, even though milk production has been decreasing over the last few years. The volume of milk intake dedicated to PDO dairy product manufacture has been growing to almost 3 billion liters per year. Organic milk production is also spread all over the country with a high concentration in two western regions, Pays de la Loire and Bretagne. It accounts for a bit more than 5% of cow milk production. The current trade is unfortunately not as positive as it was a few years ago. Production has been decreasing for the last few months, while it showed a double-digit growth between 2018 and 2021. This trend reversal is the consequence of a drastic disruption on the domestic retail market. Indeed, since 2020, the domestic market for organic products is shrinking. Organic products have been facing several negative factors. The first one is the growing offer of natural and ethical products, which answer to thoughtful consumers' expectation while being cheaper than organic products. Thus, products with local and regional claims have been especially praised since the first lockdown of the COVID pandemic. And the second negative factor is the hyperinflation background, a reason for the last 3 years, which led shoppers to favor conventional products. Another important feature of the French industry is the importance of milk production in mountain areas. There are 5 massifs in France, which include more than 10,000 cow dairy farms and account for almost 20% of national cow milk production. The figures are even more impressive for the sheep milk industry, as more than 90% of national sheep milk production comes from mountain areas. The French dairy processing structure is also very diversified. There are 5 French groups in the top world 30. Lactalis is the world dairy leader with a turnover of almost $32 billion, while Danone ranks 5th and is also the world's first fresh dairy product maker in the world. In front of these world-scale players, there are plenty of medium-sized groups. A bunch of more than 20 companies generate turnover exceeding $100 million. The French dairy leaders, especially Danone, Lactalis, and Savencia to a lesser extent, are characterized by a strong international industrial activity. Consequently, the French dairy companies process more milk abroad than in France. And apart from Switzerland, which contains with Nestlé one of the most internationalized groups, France is the only country in the world in such a situation. And this follows no established appeal for internationalization. It started for Bell just before the Second World War and just after it for Danone. Sodial started to franchise its Yoplait brand 55 years ago, while Savencia arrived in Brazil in the mid-70s. So counterintuitively, Lactalis started later its internationalization by investing in the United States in the early 80s. Well, since then, it had largely caught up Lactalis Paul's factories in more than 50 different countries. The French dairy processing activity is mostly oriented to the production of cheese and butter, which absorb more than 55% of the milk solid available. As we'll see further, this orientation follows the domestic consumption pattern, which shows a rather ordinary level for liquid milk and exceptionally high level for butter and cheese. The French dairy industry is very open to external exchange. Almost 40% of the milk produced in France are exported, while around 60% remain on the domestic market. Imports are also especially important, representing 1/3 of the domestic consumption. Finally, well, the French dairy industry showed a slight surplus of 1.9 billion liters of milk in 2023, equivalent to 8% of the milk production. The dairy product foreign trade balance is positive in France, but declining. It has declined over the last few years. Exports are growing, but imports even more. Consequently, the surplus of the foreign trade balance has declined from 3.8 to 3.2 billion euros since 2014. French dairy product export is about 9 billion euros. The share devoted to countries outside the EU has been growing for the last 20 years, from 36% in 2000 to 44% in 2023. The situation for French dairy operators is more complicated on the internal European markets. France has been losing market share over the last few years. In terms of dairy consumption per capita, France has a rather ordinary level for liquid milk with 42 liters per year, which is far below countries such as the United States, India, or Australia. On the other hand, a level of consumption for butter and cheeses are extremely high on a global scale. Has in most countries, household purchasing increased at the beginning of the COVID pandemic for all dairy products in France, but things have now returned to normal. Current market trends are today similar to those before the pandemic. Well, so households are eating more cheese and cream, less milk, butter, and yogurt. Plant-based product competition remains low in France. Since 2020, the retail market has not grown. Plant-based beverage market is equivalent to 5% of the fluid milk market in volume, while plant-based dessert market is equivalent to 2% of the yogurt and fresh dairy dessert market. To finish this presentation, I would like to focus on the specific features of the French dairy industry structure, which is based on the leading role of interbranch organization. Indeed, since the mid-70s, the French state has entrusted those organizations to organize agricultural sectors in a current manner to promote their economic development. In the dairy industry, we do have several interbranch organizations, CNIL for cow milk, but also ANICAP for goat milk, France Brebis Laitière for sheep milk, and CNAO for PDO dairy products. The different links of the industry, namely farmers, dairy co-ops, private companies, and even retailers, in the specific case of CNIL, participate in the governance of these interbranch organizations. Their main missions are to develop shared tools and standards for the entire industry and to collectively promote milk and dairy products, but also the entire dairy industry and its traits. In the case of ANICAP and CNIL, they rely on regional subsidiaries to facilitate the regional implementation of the sector policy. This concept of interbranch organization also characterizes the governance of the 14 dairy labs in charge of milk testing in France. Just to finish, a few words about the challenges we face. So the French dairy industry is facing 5 challenges. One is about responsibility and resilience. The central question is how to ensure a national and international food security while reducing our environmental impacts, adapting to climate changes, and improving animal welfare. This is not a new challenge, but we need to accelerate our collective social responsibility initiatives. We also face 3 strategical challenges concerning the attractiveness of the dairy sector and its rates, the competitiveness of the French dairy industry and its ability to create value, and finally, the response to the expectation of consumers, citizens, and eaters in terms of food quality, affordability, and proximity. Our 5th challenge concerns the global approach of our industry. We need to affirm our diversity from upstream to downstream and to be more inclusive. Well, that's all for me. Thank you very much for your attention. Merci.
Thank you, Benoit. Very interesting to learn more about your dairy industry. Before I introduce our last speaker today, I encourage you all to put your questions in the chat, because we'll have a short Q&A after if time allows. So we'll save your questions for you for then. Our next speaker and our last speaker today is Jennifer Huet. Jennifer, here she's coming. Jennifer works as Environment Director at the French Dairy Interbranch Organization, CNIL, that we've heard about a few times now. And she is also the IDF National Committee Secretary for France. Jennifer, she will present an overview of this year's World Dairy Summit. And what can we expect in Paris, Jennifer?
Yes, thank you, Hella. Indeed, I will take my National Secretary's hat today and talk about the coming World Dairy Summit in Paris. We are, of course, waiting for you and hope you will be a number of you coming to join us. Can you see my presentation now?
We can, but it's not in presentation mode.
I'm trying. Yeah,
Try.
it should be good now.
Perfect.
Perfect. So, well, my first slide will just be a synthesis of what's been said already by Jean-Marc and Benoit. Our Dairy Summit this year will be around the main aspects of the world dairy situation right now. And our idea is to provide and demonstrate that dairy products are part of the future, and we can meet the challenge of food security with milk and dairy products. but this has to be done by reducing environmental impacts, and we also have to bring new talents in so we can meet our goals. So this is a quick overview of what's going to happen during the week. So as you can see, the IDF standing committees for IDF experts will take place from Saturday to Monday this year. And we will join and open the World Dairy Summit on a Tuesday this year. This is a bit new, but I'll explain why at a later stage. We'll be happy to welcome you on the first day. So it will be on Tuesday at the Louvre Museum. So I hope some of you will be there and we can have a quick chat. And the gala dinner will take place in Meudon, which is not far from Paris, but you will have an opportunity to see a little bit of the forest next to Paris. The reason why we started the summit on a Tuesday is because on the Friday afternoon, there will be a joint event between SIAL and IDF. So SIAL is the International Forum for Food, and they hold their summit every 2 years in Paris, and it will be in 2024. So it was a good occasion to link our scientific part in IDF with the business part of SIAL. So we thought it would be a good idea to link these two events during a joint afternoon. So the next slide is written very small, but it's on purpose. So you can go on the website to get all the details of the program so far. So on Tuesday, we will open the summit with the traditional talks from officials and keynote speakers. And in the afternoon, you will have a presentation of the French dairy industry. So Benoit gave you a taste of what's going to be presented. There will be a presentation of the World Dairy Situation Report, which will be released right before the summit. So Jean-Marc will give you also an overview of the report this year. And there will be a presentation of the global marketing trends, as well as the IDF forum, where IDF shows its work during the year. Then we'll go on with a classic IDF summit with a keynote introduction in the morning and 3 parallel sessions each day. The first day we'll have a new theme, which is attractiveness. We thought that it would be good to put this theme in perspective and see what are the difference and the common points facing the dairy industry around the world in attracting fresh talents. So this will bring us to talk about women also in the dairy sector and how to attract new workers. Of course, we will have the traditional economic session and the environment one, which will deal with the economic sides of decarbonization. On the Thursday, the parallel session will deal with sustainable diets and farm management. So this year, farm management will deal with 2 themes, which are also dealt with in IDF work. The first one being animal welfare. So how do you deal with animal welfare around the world? And in the afternoon, about dairy cows. The science and technology session will deal with fermentation as a sustainable process. So how did fermentation evolve around, across times, and how is it still innovative nowadays to provide new products or new technologies? And environment session will also deal with the biodiversity question, which is arising, and we felt that it would be a good idea to discuss it together during the summit. There will be a session on marketing also, and how to better communicate to stakeholders and consumers. The last day, so the Friday, we'll deal with the nutrition and health questions and how to strengthen the position of dairy across the people ages. And we'll deal with jointly with the HUHA about the safe and sustainable food system around the One Health approach. And also, this is a new theme this year. We wanted to have a new session about know-how, culture, and origin, just to put into light some of the important contribution of the dairy sector in cultures and how they could evolve during across times and still be part of today's tradition. And in the afternoon, we'll have a closed session of the Dairy Leaders Forum and the Manifesto of Paris, which is under discussion by the national committees. So we will come up with some new information soon, I hope. So there will be also technical tours to give a real view of the dairy sector in France. So participants are invited to register online too. So there will be 5 technical tours organized. I will not go into detail, but there will be one in Normandy. There will be one in the Hauts-de-France region. So this is in the north. There will be one in Brittany and Pays de la Loire. So this will be in the west. And there will be one in Bourgogne-Franche-Comté, so it's in the south east of France. And lastly, and linked to what I told you about the link between the World Dairy Summit and the CIAL, participants can also have a guided tour of the CIAL on the Saturday all day. But they can also, when registering, choose to receive a free ticket for CIAL, so they can attend and go to this summit whenever they want during the week after the World Dairy Summit. So in a nutshell, here are some practical information, because I was a little fast and I did not give you all the information, but registration are open and available online. The early bird fair is available until the 13th of June. So it's coming soon, so don't hesitate to register. I insist that there are limited seats for the gala dinner and also for technical tours and for any administrative question. I must also insist on the fact that invitation letters are sent upon request when registration is confirmed. So if you need a visa, please consider processing time when registering. There is also on the website a list of hotels close to the venue, so you can find your hotel. And there will be also, as usual, a poster presentation. So abstract submission is open until the 13th of May. Please provide your abstract if you feel it's interesting for the global dairy community, and we will be happy to display it during the World Dairy Summit. And lastly, we cannot organize a summit with the theme of sustainability without considering our summit's sustainability. So we will monitor the total emission of the event. So we invite participants to consider their carbon footprint when traveling. Of course, we know some are coming from far away and will need to use plane, but on site, we invite you to use public transport, and the venue is easily accessible by metro and stuff. So I think that's all for me. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I actually registered on Friday, so then I can encourage everybody else now listening to this webinar to also register. Before I look at the chat, there is no questions so far. So far you've been very clear, but I'm sure that there's people that would like to ask either Jean-Marc Benoit or Jennifer something. We still have a few minutes before we need to wrap up this webinar. But while I wait for some coming in on the chat, I was actually wondering, Jean-Marc, what kind of documents do we receive when we are buying the World Dairy Situation Report? It would be nice to know.
Yes, good question. If you make the right decision to buy the report, the World Dairy Situation Report, you will receive the you will receive the PDF of the report.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm still here.
You will receive the PDF of the report, which I displayed a little bit earlier. You will also receive a PPT with all the charts of the report, which will make it easier to do a presentation. And you will also receive an Excel file with all the data from all the countries in the report, from production, milk production, dairy processing production, and import and exports.
Perfect. Sounds like we all should buy it, and usually we do. And will it be provided this year for free during the summit, Jennifer? You are muted.
Sorry. I have to check with Sebastian, but I think so, yes.
Thank you. I still don't see any questions on the chat. Encourage you all to use it, but I'll use the opportunity in the meantime. As I started, I said I was curious to learn more about the French dairy industry, and thanks for giving this overview, Noah. But I noticed you had a figure saying that the cow milk production went down 8%, if I'm correct?
Yes.
Is there any chance that the cow milk production will increase again in the near future, or what do you think is coming ahead?
Well, actually, we don't know, but we work on it. Our main limiting factor is labor. The age pyramid of our dairy farm is very unbalanced. Many farmers settled at the end of the 80s, and so these guys are now retiring. And so we face a huge departure wave with more than 4,000 guys leaving the business each year, while the number of new dairy farms which start their career remains stable around 2,000 each year. So if we manage to maintain this level of setting up, the situation is expected to improve in the 2 or 3 years to follow. But we have a lot of work to convince young people of the interest to be a dairy farmer, so to be inclusive. And so this implies higher revenue in our farms and better working conditions. So it's the reason why also we were very motivated to have a conference on attractiveness in Paris.
Thank you, Benoit. And I think the challenge you're pointing at is a challenge that we, many of us share in the countries we come from, to make it attractive for the young generation to take over the farm. Is there anyone wanting? I cannot see any hands, or I cannot see any questions on the chat so far. So I guess that means that you have all been very clear, and I guess with only 5 minutes left, I will take the opportunity to maybe say thank you so much to all 3 of you for the presentations. Very useful for us to know more about what's happening in France, in the world, and we are looking forward to see you in Paris, Jennifer. Thank you. With that, Annabelle, could you put up the slides for closing today? Here it's coming. Perfect. Thank you. So as I said, I would like to thank all the speakers for their presentations. But before concluding this webinar, I would like to just briefly mention some news about IDF. Apart from the publication of the World Dairy Situation Report that we have heard about today, IDF is publishing diverse documents on a wide variety of topics in relation to the entire dairy chain. So I encourage you all to visit our publication website. Our next event coming up, I must admit I'm very involved. Our next event is the IDF Cheese Science and Technology Symposium, and it will be held from June 4 to 6 in Norway, where I come from. I'm part of the organizing committee, so I would like to say that we have a very good lineup of speakers for this 3 days event. And we have a very nice location in the city of Bergen. Being on the list of UNESCO, you should use the opportunity to come for several reasons. So far, one of the tech tours is full and our gala dinner is coming close to the limit, but we still have free seats and it is still time to register, and it's not very hard to travel to Bergen. So the link to see the program and to register, you will find in the chat. Annabelle has promised me she will put it there. So I will be there, and I hope to meet many of you and your colleagues there. And please feel free to share the information about the event in your network this week. It's time to buy your tickets, but there are still plenty of flight tickets available, at least as of this morning when I was looking into Bergen. And the last thing I would like to mention is that the Dairy Innovation Awards are still open for applications until June 1st. So it's also coming up fast, so please encourage. This is a great opportunity to celebrate the innovative practices that we have across the dairy sector and their contribution to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Please check out in the chat. You'll find the link there for more information. The winners will be announced during the World Dairy Summit in Paris. And I know that if you have some people interested, they can contact their national secretary. For members, it's actually free to put in submissions. And you can get a code from your national secretary if you're part of one of the national committees. So this leads me to invite you to join the IDF community for the World Dairy Summit 2024 in Paris. And as Jennifer mentioned, registration is open. So I will just like to finish this webinar by saying, see you there.
Thank you a lot. Bye-bye.